Cases that involve people with secret lives. And this first one really hits close to home. I know Martha and Robert Harris, and I also knew their beautiful daughter, Lindsay. After Lindsay moved to Las Vegas, her parents had no idea that she had begun to live a double life. And by the time they found out, Lindsay had gone missing. In May 2008, they learned through a DNA match that Lindsay had been murdered. Today, questions about Lindsay's murder have detectives wondering if she fell victim to a serial killer, one who makes a living on the highway. Behind the big rigs and the 18-wheelers, behind the open roads and the roads less traveled, there's a dark secret, and it's affecting law enforcement agencies nationwide. According to the FBI, more than 500 murder victims have been found alongside our nation's highways. Lindsay Harris was one of them. Now her case has become part of something called the Highway Serial Killings Initiative. Using a computer database, the FBI is trying to identify patterns that might help solve the staggering number of murders along America's roadways.
Well, with this map, what we're looking at is you're looking at the spread of where the victims were recovered.
Mike Harrigan is in charge of the initiative. He knows that there are millions of truck drivers making an honest living crisscrossing the nation. But he's also learned that the nature of the trucking industry can create the perfect opportunity for a killer and a nightmare for investigators.
Say you have a suspect in South Carolina that drives to Missouri, picks up a victim in a truck stop, drives into, let's say, Colorado, dumps the body there, and then they continue on their way to their destination, which may be in Washington State. So the investigator is left with a body or an unidentified body in his location in which the victim and the suspect have no connection to his jurisdiction.
In 5 years, the Highway Serial Killings Initiative has helped identify some 200 suspects. One of them is Bruce Mendenhall, a long-haul trucker from Illinois. He was arrested at a Nashville, Tennessee truck stop in 2007 for the murder of Sarah Hulbert. Sarah had been shot and was dumped behind the truck stop. The Serial Killings Initiative quickly linked Mendenhall to 3 other cases. He's been charged with murder in all of them and is a suspect in several more. When he sat down with detectives in the Hulbert case, he claimed he was the victim and left to clean up the mess after 2 friends went on a killing spree.
And you said that they killed about 7 women in your presence or close to a time when you were there.
Right.
Does that sound right?
Something like that. And I figured it was with my gun, since they've did it before.
So every time they show up, somebody gets killed? Okay. And the DNA on your fingernail is going to come back to the girl from Indianapolis, don't you agree?
Oh, yeah.
And there's probably, I'm going to guess, DNA in your truck to come back to every single victim that you've described. You agree with that?
Probably.
Okay.
I wouldn't argue that a bit.
Okay. Did you ever think about going to the place and seeing?
Yeah, I thought about it.
Okay. All right. Did you
They
get the gun?
They threatened my kids.
And these guys, even though they were mean and nasty to your family, they really had nothing to do with the homicides. If you're the guy that did these
Give me a
things-
lawyer.
Calling America's Most Wanted, this is operator 1040, how may I help you?
Mendenhall's name came up in several of your tips after we told you about the murder of Lindsay Harris. He fits the profile of the person investigators are looking for.
I have a way of concealing that.
Detective Larry Hanna believes Lindsay's murder could be connected to 3 other cases. Misty Saines, Jody Brewer, and Jessica Foster all disappeared from Las Vegas around the same time as Lindsay. Misty and Jody's remains were found alongside a highway. Jessica has never been found. Investigators are hoping that information already in the highway serial killing. Now, if there is a truck driver out there with a secret life as a serial killer, he may have added another victim just weeks ago. On the night of October 17, 2009, Morgan Harrington went missing after attending a Metallica concert on the campus of the University of Virginia. Now, cops believe Morgan was hitchhiking right before she disappeared. Her purse and cell phone were discovered in a search of the area near where the concert was held, but there was no sign of Morgan. Now, of course, we don't know if there's a connection between this case and the others, or frankly, if any of the cases are truly connected. But if you know anything about Morgan's disappearance or the murders of any victim in our story, please, you've got to come forward and leave your tips with our hotline, 1-800-CRIME-TV. And I guarantee you that you can remain anonymous.
Coming up.
I'm calling from the TA in Brantford. I just had a driver ask me to call. There's a guy dead in a trailer.
A murder at a truck stop has cops hitting the highway to hunt down a killer, and you'll go along for the ride.
We've got some great news to report tonight about a lowlife we've been chasing all over the world.
Dr. Weinberger.
Hi there.
Dr. Mark Weinberger, who vanished 5 years ago while facing charges in a huge medical fraud case in Indiana, has reappeared in handcuffs. He was arrested this week in Italy. The Italian police say he was hiding out in this tent in the Alps. Details are still coming in, and you can get the whole story at our website, amw.com. Tonight we're going after criminals with secret lives, but our next bad guy had kind of a secret job. He was a lumper, and unless you work in the trucking business, you probably never heard of them. John Lieberman stepped inside their hidden culture to help the lumpers hunt down one of their own.
Been everywhere, across the whole United States. I saw everything. Everything. Mountains, land, trees, water, everything. You have to be a special person to be in the trucking industry. It is something that not everyone can do.
For 6 years, Vicki and her ex-husband owned a long-haul trucking company. The challenges were many, and yet Vicki's passion for the people, the truckers, was great.
I love the trucking industry. I love the trucking community. I have family out there that are truckers.
Vicki recently left the business, but remained intimately tied to it through her ex. Besides, once a trucker, always a trucker.
Everybody makes sure that everybody's safe at all times. We keep in touch often. It's just like one big family.
It's a family always on alert. That's one reason why Vicki has her Saturday night ritual of watching America's Most Wanted. And this past July 11th started out no differently.
I was actually at a friend's house at a barbecue, and I told them, I need to get home. The show is on at 8. This is a religious thing. I need to go home and watch it.
What struck Vicki about this particular episode was a segment about the industry she knew so much about.
I never knew about the lumpers. And unless you're working in the trucking business, you probably never heard of them either.
It stuck out, that segment that you all did about the lumper getting murdered back in Connecticut.
We were on the hunt for Michael Chavez, a guy known as a lumper or a helper in the trucking world. Connecticut cops wanted to talk to Chavez because he was the last man seen with another lumper, Dale Anderson, before somebody beat Dale to death with a baseball bat in the back of a trailer. Chavez hasn't been charged with the crime, but cops believe he knows what happened. Knowing that her ex-husband would frequently hire lumpers, Vicki decided to give him a call and check in.
He said, why are you so concerned about me right now? He said, I'll be just fine. I promise.
At that point, you must have been relieved.
I was relieved, yes, but at the same time, I had this gnawing feeling. I had a feeling that something was not right at all. And I said, okay, I dismissed it for the night and went ahead and went to bed.
Things were all right at that moment.
Well, when I first met him out there in El Paso, he asked me where I was heading. I told him Austin, Texas. He asked me if I'd give him a ride.
This is Vicki's ex-husband. He doesn't want to show his face because his company doesn't allow him to pick up hitchhikers or hire lumpers. But that's exactly what he did in the early morning hours of July 12th, after he first spoke to his ex-wife.
And we started going down the road, and that's when I found out he was a lumper from Connecticut up there. He told me his first name. He never did tell me his last name.
The driver thought nothing of the small talk. He'd picked up hundreds of guys before. This guy, Mike, said he didn't feel well and was peacefully asleep in the back. But Vicky was finding peace hard to come by. She couldn't get rid of that gnawing feeling that something was wrong.
What made you pick up the phone?
Instinct. I believe instinct. It was within me to just make sure that my ex-husband was all right.
She called again later on after I met Mike. I told her, I said, well, I got this guy from Connecticut with me. She described him. I said, well, yeah, don't sound like him.
Because every hair stood up on my body. And I proceeded to ask him questions, you know, and he said, I cannot answer any of these questions right now. In his low voice, he said, I've got to go up the road. I will continue up the road and I will call you. I was freaking out. I was totally and utterly in shock.
Vicky called our hotline and said she thought our fugitive may be riding in the truck with her ex-husband. Our hotline operator immediately called the trucker to find out where he was so he could dispatch cops. The first goal, though, was to try and find out if the guy in the truck was indeed our fugitive.
Find out if he had any tattoos. Did he have any tattoos?
I seen a Tasmanian devil on the left arm and some other tattoo on the right arm.
But just as the driver got off the phone with AMW, he heard a noise from the sleeping compartment behind his seat.
The driver thought Mike was sleeping back here, but he had actually been listening to the driver's conversation with America's Most Wanted and with his ex-wife. Mike knew he was running out of time, and he had to make his move. So he told the driver to pull over, that he was going to get sick. And as soon as the truck stopped, he tossed his duffel bag out of the truck, he jumped out, and ran for the woods.
The driver didn't chase after him because in the 120-degree heat of the Ozona, Texas desert, he figured the fugitive wouldn't get far.
I called my ex-wife up and said, well, I don't got the guy in my truck no more. She asked me, what did I do, kick him out? I said, no, he got out running.
The driver alerted AMW as to his location, and we got the cops en route right away.
There's some footprints around here.
But after hours of searching, no luck. Even though they, too, speculated Chavez couldn't have gotten far in this dangerous desert.
He runs across a rattlesnake. If he gets bit, there's really nowhere he can go.
Cops still haven't found Chavez, and it still hasn't completely sunk into this driver. He had one of America's most wanted fugitives in his truck.
I could have been dead. He could have killed me.
Luckily, your ex-wife called you and gave you a heads up.
If she didn't never called, I would never know.
For her part, Vicky still worries about her ex-husband and the rest of the trucking family, and that's why she's remaining vigilant in reminding people about Michael Chavez.
I needed to contact everyone that I had numbers for, and I told them to contact everyone they had numbers for. It touched me deeply because he was in the same truck as my ex-husband. When it hits close to home like that, you want this guy caught, and quickly.
Now remember, Michael Chavez, or Chaves as he might also be calling himself, isn't charged with murder. But cops want to talk to him because he was the last person seen with Dale Anderson before he was killed. And Chavez has been arrested before. He was taken down on drug charges, and there's a probation violation warrant for him out of Texas. Chavez is a day laborer who specializes in moving furniture. He smokes Pall Mall cigarettes, and he loves to play video games. He could be anywhere, but he's got ties to California and Washington State. So if you've seen Michael Chavez, you've got to call our hotline tonight.
Coming up.
Join one of the most incredible murder investigations in the country. Now, I'd heard all about it beforehand, but even as I was in the air headed to the crime scene, I really hope and pray that Dan Valdez won't have to wait much longer to find out who killed his beautiful daughter. And the good news is the investigation continues to make real progress. Since I visited the crime scene last April, 3 more of the victims buried there have been identified, and one of them was just 16 years old. So as you heard, only one of the 11 victims remains unidentified. So please look at the victims' pictures and all of the clues at amw.com. And if you know anything that can help cops solve this case, you gotta leave your tip online or call our hotline toll-free at 1-800-CRIME-TV. Whoever murdered these women is probably still out there. So let's make sure that this horrible killer is off the streets. amw.com to look up clues on all of these lowlifes. For that matter, any of our most wanted. And if you know where Herrig, Hicks, or Chafee is tonight, leave your tip online or pick up the phone and make that call. Toll-free, 1-800-CRIME-TV. That's 1-800-274-6388.
Coming up, he seemed to be a model cop, but he hid a dark secret behind his badge.
This is Dan Hires. Junior, sign off.
Now, his secret's out, and we're out to bring him in.
Jesus Alejandro Arteaga is wanted in Southern California for stabbing his pregnant wife to death. Call if you've seen him. Next week, we'll be counting down my annual worst of the worst, my personal 10 most wanted for 2009. Well, Dan Hires was #1 on that list back in 2005. And of all the people with secret lives you've seen tonight, Hires is probably the most two-faced creep of this bunch. This accused killer... I'm not kidding. I'm sick of this guy. The next time Hires shows up on this program, I want to see him in handcuffs. So please, log on to amw.com, study all the clues, photos, and videos we have of him, then leave us the tip that finally takes this disgusting coward down. Houston police officer Henry Canales was shot to death by a suspect during an undercover sting operation before another undercover officer returned fire, killing the suspect. Before joining the department 16 years ago, Officer Canales served in the Air Force. He was well known throughout his department as a dedicated officer who had a way of brightening the spirits of those around him. He loved drag racing cars at the track and was a volunteer with Beat the Heat, a program to curb illegal street racing. Officer Canales leaves behind his wife, Amor, and their 2 children, Stephanie and Henry Jr.
Wanted for questioning about a murder at a Connecticut truck stop. Accused killer Claudia Herrig, wanted for murdering her husband. Accused child molester Daniel Chafee. And Daniel Hires, accused of molesting a child and murdering his wife.
Now next week, get ready for our annual roundup of my most wanted fugitives of the year. A devious bank robber, a heartless child killer, a ticking time bomb who went off in a place known for peace and quiet. They're all on my top 10. Who's my most wanted lowlife of the year? Well, make sure you're right here next week to find out and help take that fugitive down. Until then, please stay safe